Arizona is storing water underground right now, not in tanks, not in reservoirs, in the actual ground beneath your feet. And the state has been doing it for decades because the day the Colorado River runs dry, this is what keeps the lights on. At number 10, we have the Superstition Mountains Recharge Project, sitting inside the Phoenix Active Management Area. It opened in June 2011 after costing $10 million to build. 2 basins, 38 acres of infiltration area, and water moving through the ground at 5 to 6 feet per day. That infiltration rate matters more than it sounds. Most recharge sites push water down at 2 to 3 feet per day. The Superstition Mountains facility moves it nearly twice as fast, which means more water stored in less time whenever surplus Colorado River water is available to send here. The pump turnout at this facility can handle 150 cubic feet per second. To put that in plain terms, that is enough flow to fill an Olympic swimming pool in roughly 35 seconds. All of that capacity exists just to move surplus water into the ground before it goes to waste. One detail that separates this facility from others in the Phoenix area is tribal access. The Gila River Indian community holds permits to recharge Central Arizona Project water here. That makes the Superstition Mountains project a key piece of tribal water management, not just a state infrastructure asset. The Gila River Indian community has some of the oldest and largest water rights in Arizona. Their access to recharge facilities like this one allows them to bank their allocation underground rather than use it immediately, giving them a drought buffer that mirrors what the state is building for everyone else. In terms of total acreage, this is one of the smaller facilities in the Phoenix network. 38 acres sounds significant until you compare it to what is coming later in this list. But size is not the only thing that determines value in a water banking system built for survival. When drought years arrive and the Colorado River allocation gets cut, Arizona does not panic the way other states do. Part of the reason is facilities like this one quietly adding to the underground reserve year after year. Number 10 is small, but it is always working. Coming in at number 9 is the Hieroglyphic Mountains Recharge Project, tucked into the western edge of the Phoenix area. It opened in January 2003 and cost $5.7 million to build. 7 basins, 38 acres of combined infiltration area, a pump turnout rated at 100 cubic feet per second. The infiltration rate here runs at about 3 feet per day, slower than the Superstition Mountains facility. That difference comes down to geology. The soil and sediment composition beneath each site determines how quickly water can move downward, and not every patch of desert drains the same way. The process at this facility follows the same core logic as most Arizona recharge projects. Surplus Colorado River water arrives through the Central Arizona Project Canal. It gets spread across the basins at the surface. Gravity takes over. The water seeps down through the soil layer by layer until it hits the aquifer. What makes the Hieroglyphic Mountains location strategically useful is geography. The Phoenix Active Management Area is enormous, and having recharge infrastructure spread across its western edge means the underground reserve is not concentrated in one spot. Distributed storage is more resilient than centralized storage when the system gets stressed. At $5.7 million, this was one of the more affordable facilities in the Central Arizona Water Conservation District's portfolio. Lower construction costs mean a better return on every acre-foot stored. Efficiency in water banking is not just about volume. It is about how much it costs to get that volume underground. Like most facilities on this list, the Hieroglyphic Mountains project does not make headlines. It does not have a visitor center. Most people driving through Western Phoenix have no idea it exists. It just keeps taking in water during the good years and banking it for the years that are not. Number 9 is not flashy. But in a state where the difference between a water crisis and a managed shortage comes down to how much is stored underground, a facility that has been quietly running since 2003 has earned its place on this list. At number 8, we have the Agua Fria Recharge Project, another Central Arizona Water Conservation District facility inside the Phoenix Active Management Area. It came online in May 2002 after costing $10.5 million to build. 7 basins, 38 acres of combined basin area. Infiltration rates between 2 and 4 feet per day. What sets this facility apart from every other one covered so far is how the water gets delivered. Instead of pumps, the Agua Fria project uses gravity. Water flows in through a gravity turnout rated at 350 cubic feet per second. No pumps means lower operating costs every single day the facility runs. That 350 cubic feet per second gravity turnout is more than 3 times the pumped capacity at the Hieroglyphic Mountains facility. Gravity-fed delivery at that rate means the Agua Fria project can receive a massive surge of surplus water quickly, which is exactly what you want when the Cap Canal is running full. Water stored at this facility earns long-term storage credits tracked by the Arizona Water Banking Authority. Those credits belong to whoever deposited the water. When drought or shortage conditions trigger a call, the credited entity can recover the water by pumping it back out from nearby wells. The Arizona Water Banking Authority itself is one of the permitted entities storing water at this site. That means some of what is sitting underground here right now is held in reserve specifically for statewide shortage response, not tied to any single city or district. It is Arizona's communal emergency supply. I'm with you fade at $10.5 million. The construction cost was higher than the Hieroglyphic Mountains project, but the operational savings from gravity-fed delivery close that gap over time. A facility that does not need to run pumps around the clock costs significantly less to operate over a 20 or 30-year lifespan. The Agua Fria recharge project is a good example of smart design in a state where water infrastructure has to be built to last. Not the biggest, not the fastest, but engineered in a way that keeps costs down and keeps water moving into the ground for decades. Coming in at number 7 is the Pima Mine Road recharge project, located about 15 miles south of Tucson. It costs $7.8 million to build and features 5 basins. It sits 2.5 miles east of where the Central Arizona Project's underground steel pipelines end their 336-mile run from the Colorado River. Water enters through an underground vault and then seeps into loosely packed sands and gravels below the surface. The travel time from the moment water enters the ground to the moment it reaches the aquifer is roughly 10 days. That is a specific and measurable journey happening constantly beneath the desert floor. Here is the detail that makes this facility stand out from everything else in southern Arizona. Less than a mile away from the recharge basins sits a city well field. That proximity means when the time comes to recover the stored water, the infrastructure to do it is already there. Wismadibant Gortom Benwazing that was just called Tuesday. At every other Central Arizona Project recharge site, recovering stored water requires drilling new wells or building new recovery infrastructure. At Pima Mine Road, the existing well field next door could potentially do the job. That is a significant practical advantage that no other site in the CAP portfolio currently has. Storing water is only half the equation in underground water banking. The other half is getting it back out efficiently when it is needed. A site with recovery infrastructure already nearby cuts the cost and the timeline of that second half dramatically, which makes every acre-foot stored here more accessible than elsewhere. Southern Arizona does not have the same density of recharge infrastructure as the Phoenix area, so facilities like this one carry more weight in the regional water picture. The Pima Mine Road project is a key southern node in a network that has to stretch across an enormous and diverse geography. At number 6, we have 2 facilities that work together just northwest of Tucson. The Lower Santa Cruz Recharge Project and the Cortaro Marana facilities form a cluster that manages groundwater across the Tucson Active Management Area. The Lower Santa Cruz project alone cost $3.9 million and came online in June 2000. 3 recharge basins, 38 acres of combined infiltration area, an annual permitted storage volume of 50,000 acre-feet. Those numbers make the Lower Santa Cruz project one of the more modest facilities on this list, but the way it was built adds a layer of value that pure storage numbers do not capture. The Lower Santa Cruz project was constructed alongside a flood control levee along the Santa Cruz River. The levee was built to protect the town of Marana from flooding. The recharge basins were built right next to it. One construction project, 2 completely different problems solved at the same time with the same dollars. That dual-purpose design is not common in Arizona water infrastructure. Most recharge facilities are built purely for storage. The Lower Santa Cruz project delivers flood protection to an entire town while simultaneously pushing Central Arizona project water into the ground. It is the kind of efficiency that water managers in dry states dream about. Entities storing water at this facility include the Arizona Water Banking Authority, the Central Arizona Groundwater Replenishment District, and the town of Marana. Multiple players with different needs and different timelines, all using the same infrastructure. That kind of shared access maximizes the return on the original construction investment. The cluster of facilities in this part of the Tucson area fills a geographic gap that the larger and more visible projects further north do not reach. Every region of Arizona's active management areas needs its own storage nodes, and the Northwest Tucson cluster is what keeps that part of the map covered. You are good. At number 5, we have the Scottsdale Water Campus, and this one operates at a completely different level from everything covered so far. Scottsdale does not just store water underground. It purifies recycled water to a standard higher than bottled water, and then recharges it directly into the drinking water aquifer. The Advanced Water Treatment Facility at the Scottsdale Water Campus has been doing this for more than 30 years. It takes treated water from the city's conventional water reclamation plant and then runs it through ozonation, membrane ultrafiltration, reverse osmosis, and ultraviolet photolysis before it ever touches the ground. What comes out of that treatment process exceeds bottled water quality standards. Scottsdale is not just storing water. It is storing water that is cleaner than what most people buy at the grocery store, and then putting it directly into the aquifer that supplies the city's drinking water supply. The city recharges through 63 VADOS zone wells, all located within a mile of the water campus. On an average day, around 5 million gallons of that ultra-pure water goes back into the ground. That is a continuous daily contribution to the aquifer happening quietly beneath one of Arizona's most recognizable cities. Here is the number that separates Scottsdale from every other city in Arizona. In 2006, Scottsdale became the first city in the state to reach safe yield. That means groundwater replenishment equaled groundwater pumped. The aquifer was no longer losing ground. Nearly 20 years before the state's mandated attainment date. 1-6. No other Arizona city has done that. Not Phoenix, not Tucson, not Mesa. Scottsdale hit a target in 2006 that the rest of the state is still working toward. The water campus is the primary reason that happened, and it happened because the city committed to the technology early and stayed committed. Number 5 is not just a water storage site. It is proof that a city can actually solve its groundwater problem if it builds the right infrastructure and runs it consistently for decades. That is a harder thing to do than it sounds, and Scottsdale is currently the only Arizona city that has done it. At number 4, we have 2 massive projects west of Tucson that together form the backbone of the entire city's long-term water supply. The Central Avra Valley Storage and Recovery Project and the Southern Avra Valley Storage and Recovery Project. Locals call them KAVSARP and SAVSARP. KAVSARP includes 11 recharge basins totaling 317 acres. Tucson Water purchased this land in the 1970s with the specific goal of retiring it from agricultural use and converting it into water storage. That decision, made before the Central Arizona Project Canal was even finished, turned out to be one of the smartest long-term moves in the city's history. Those ni fi, you a good e fear. La model do say, what ing butterfully. E fear bayav di reyu. In the mid-1990s, Tucson Water began storing Colorado River water at KAVSARP through the Central Arizona Project Canal. Colorado River water infiltrates through the basins, migrates down to the water table, and blends with the existing groundwater below. That blended groundwater then gets pumped back out and sent to a treatment plant. From the treatment plant, that recovered water travels east over the Tucson Mountains and into the city's distribution system. It ends up coming out of taps in homes and businesses across Tucson. Water that started in the Colorado River sat underground in Avra Valley and traveled across a mountain range to reach the kitchen sink. SAVSARP is the sister project. 9 recharge basins, 226 acres, also owned and operated by Tucson Water. Built to ensure the city could fully use its entire Colorado River allocation, rather than losing any of it to waste during high-flow years when demand is lower than supply. Together, KAVSARP and SAVSARP cover more than 540 acres of recharge infrastructure. That scale is what makes this number 4 on the list rather than lower. Tucson is not a city with a backup plan. It is a city that built a water recovery system large enough to serve its entire population through extended shortages. What this pair of projects represents is the full loop. Water in, water stored, water recovered, water treated, water delivered. Most cities hope they never have to rely heavily on their stored reserves. Tucson built infrastructure specifically designed to make stored reserves the primary water source when conditions demand it. The one bite leafing field. At number 3, we have the Maricopa-Stanfield Irrigation and Drainage District in the heart of agricultural Pinal County. And this one works completely differently from every other facility on this list. There are no constructed basins here, no engineered infiltration areas, no surface spreading of water. This is a groundwater savings facility, which means the storage mechanism is subtraction rather than addition. Instead of pumping water into the ground, the district agrees to reduce how much groundwater it pumps out. Renewable surface water gets delivered to the district for irrigation instead, and the groundwater simply stays where it is. The water that is saved is not moved, it is not processed, it is not stored in any constructed structure. It is just left alone underground, which is the simplest and most cost-effective form of water banking that exists. The aquifer does all the work. The district just agrees not to drain it. Through 2020, approximately 648,000 acre-feet of Arizona Water Banking Authority credits had been stored at the Maricopa-Stanfield District. That is more credits stored at a single location than anywhere else in the state. An agricultural district in Pinal County holds the record for the most banked water in all of Arizona. That number deserves to sit for a moment. 648,000 acre-feet. The entire city of Tucson uses roughly 100,000 acre-feet per year. The Maricopa-Stanfield District is quietly holding more than 6 years' worth of Tucson's total water demand underground, and most Arizonans have never heard of it. When shortage conditions trigger a call on those credits, permitted entities can recover the water by pumping from the aquifer in this area. The groundwater that was never pumped out is now there to be pumped out on demand. Decades of restraint converted into a massive emergency reserve sitting beneath Pinal County farmland. Number 3 is a reminder that the most powerful water infrastructure in Arizona is not always the most visible. No construction photos, no ribbon-cutting ceremonies, just farmers agreeing to pump less water and the state tracking every acre-foot of what they did not take. Simple math. Enormous result. Coming in at number 2 is the Granite Reef underground storage project near Mesa, and this one has a claim that goes beyond Arizona. It is considered one of the largest water banking recharge projects of its kind in the entire country. 7 recharge basins, a location on Salt River Pima Maricopa Indian Community Land north of State Route 202. The project was developed through a partnership between the Salt River Project and 6 valley municipalities, including Chandler, Gilbert, Mesa, Phoenix, Scottsdale, and Tempe. Originally constructed in 1994 and expanded in 1999, 2000, and 2005, the facility grew over more than a decade of investment into what it is today. When fully operational, Granite Reef banks between 40,000 and 50,000 acre-feet per year. Since its completion, it has recharged over 1 million acre-feet of water total. To give that number a physical reference point, that is the equivalent of 17 saguaro lakes sitting underground near Mesa right now. The primary purpose of this stored water is not day-to-day supply, it is backup. Specifically, backup for prolonged droughts or declared Colorado River shortage conditions. When the federal government cuts Arizona's Colorado River allocation, this is one of the facilities that gets called on to fill the gap for millions of valley residents. Granite Reef also plays a role in helping Arizona maximize its Colorado River entitlement. During years when the river runs high and Arizona receives more water than it can use immediately, this facility absorbs the surplus rather than letting it flow downstream. Banking the excess now means having it available later when the river is not generous. A facility with over 1 million acre-feet recharged, partnerships spanning 6 major cities, and a national reputation for scale deserves to be near the top of any list about Arizona water banking. But one facility edges it out, and the story of that facility is far more complicated than anything covered so far. But number 1 is where everything changes. The Tonopa Desert Recharge Project sits about 65 miles west of Phoenix in a remote stretch of the Sonoran Desert near the small community of Tonopa. It cost $13 million to build. Operations began in January 2006. 19 recharge basins, 207 acres of combined infiltration area. The design called for approximately 150,000 acre-feet of Colorado River water to be transported each year from the Central Arizona Project Canal through pipelines and pumps to those 19 basins, where it would percolate down into the lower KAVSARP sub-basin below. That was the plan. And for years, it worked. The largest number of credits stored at any single underground storage facility in Arizona is approximately 513,000 acre-feet, and all of those credits belong to Tonopa, not Granite Reef, not the Maricopa-Stanfield District's constructed basins. The single facility with the most physically stored water in Arizona is in the middle of a remote desert 65 miles from Phoenix, 513,000 acre-feet. Underground, in constructed basins. That is the record for direct physical recharge storage in the state. Tonopa earned that record by running at high capacity during the years when Colorado River water was available and the storage credits were needed. It did exactly what it was designed to do. Then in 2015, water deliveries to the project were halted. The official reason was practical. Other recharge facilities located closer to population centers were considered more efficient storage locations. Moving water 65 miles west of Phoenix to store it costs more than storing it somewhere closer to the customers who will eventually need it back. But the delivery halt was not the only problem. Testing conducted after operations slowed found something the original project planners had not accounted for. The aquifer beneath the recharge basins is substantially less permeable below 300 feet than anyone initially thought. Water can get in. Getting it back out is a different story. And then the water quality findings arrived. Concentrations of arsenic and fluoride in the natural groundwater beneath the Tonopa site are higher than previously estimated. That does not mean the stored water is contaminated, but it does mean that recovering it requires treatment that nobody fully priced into the original projections. Put those two problems together. An aquifer that resists deep recovery. Natural groundwater with elevated arsenic and fluoride. The total cost to actually pull those 513,000 acre-feet back out and make them usable could be far greater than what was originally planned. The state stored the water. Getting it back is the expensive part. Tonopa is simultaneously the most impressive and the most sobering facility on this entire list. It holds the most stored water of any constructed underground storage site in Arizona. It also stands as the clearest example of what happens when the science of aquifer recovery gets underestimated during the planning phase. Arizona built these 10 facilities because the Colorado River cannot be trusted forever. The math has always been clear. Store water now or run out later. Tonopa proves that storing it is only the first challenge. The second challenge is making sure you can actually get it back when the desert finally calls in the debt.